episode 81, and we move on from Scotland and the Loch, and we move to Planet of Evil.
Planet of Pain.
Technically the first
Planet of Hatred.
script. Technically the first script to be commissioned by Philip Hinchcliffe, so technically this is really the beginning of his era. The rest in the previous season were commissioned by then outgoing Barry Letts and Terrence Dix. I would say it has teething problems.
Ever think about this again?
Well, you're going to. What happens in part 1, dear?
No, are you from the Planet of Evil? Is this why we're doing this?
Okay, so we open up on some people on a planet that seem to be walking around.
I got it. I just...
Okay, we'll get around and do it then.
Don't bully me!
If you're gonna keep complaining, I'll just do it.
I mean, that's not how the podcast works.
Well, I know, but you're not doing what you're meant to be doing, so I'll do it.
Oh my god, there's a planet full of trees and weeds and shit, and it looks like War of the Worlds after everybody died and they did all the red plant things. And
there's red vines everywhere.
Yeah, and there's a spaceship with men inside, and then he puts a fucking sign down at a grave, and he looks through his gun telescope for a bit, and another dude is picking up some broken glass while a third dude looks at it. They're gonna be named Beard, Sean Bean / Greasy Man, and Old. Beard is doing some stuff with the glass and asks Old Man what's up, and he's like, they need to get back to the ship, but Grease Bean doesn't want to leave, and then something is watching them, and Old Guy hears something outside and goes to check, and some TV static, kills him, and poofs away his body for a second, while Beard makes his way back to the ship through the jungle, gets inside the ship, realizes Old Dude is gone, but then the static is here and kills him too. But it's okay, he pushed a button before he died. So it's fine. Sarah's upset.
Ah, the button, of course.
Yes, Sarah is upset because they're not in London, and they basically overshot by 30,000 years. But they get an emergency beacon and are like, shoot, onto this weird planet. Where are they? Sarah is getting trapped by a whole bunch of weird spaceship, and her mind is she's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? She's, disassociating, basically. And she's like, oh, that was weird. And then a prototype PS5 flies into frame, and we see it talking about how this is the last known planet or something. And the ship apparently doesn't have a whole lot of power. And they're rationing power, and they're gonna go down soon. Sarah felt really weird, but they keep going. And the ship is sending some people down to find the professor that they apparently sent down. And they are ready to shoot to kill. And Sarah and the doctor stumble across some human bodies and the graves and stuff and go, And Sarah goes to stay in the TARDIS, and the doctor stumbles on a dead, decayed body of that dude that called them. But he's really old now looking. He's dried out. It's weird. The Blue Man group has landed and found the TARDIS, by the way. And they're just talking about opening it and seeing what's inside while a single man watches from afar. And they go to beam it onto the ship, and Sarah tries to leave the TARDIS because she's inside, of course. And the doors are open. So that sucks. Grease Bean has been watching, and they're like, oh, it's okay, we've been looking for you. And then they head to the ship and find the doctor messing with stuff, and they're like, you did it. You're captured now. And Sarah's like, fuck, finally opens the door, and she's on the spaceship, and she's captured now. And then they tell the ship about the doctor, and everyone's just confused. Sarah tries to explain, but it's just more confusing. They think she's lying. So they land the ship and plan to torture the both of them. And also, we found no other visible aliens on the planet, so you're the only one that could have killed them, right? And Sarah's like, hey, why can't we...
So you must have done it.
Yeah, we're in this jail cell. There's a window. Let's just go through it. And he's like, okay. And then they are escaping, but then the monster thing comes back, and it's kind of red and see-through and weird. And this is the episode. part, whatever.
Red, see-through, and weird, and poop and pants and shit and farted and poopy whoopy. So, working title for this was The Planet of Evil. They changed it. They dropped the, because I guess they don't like the.
Thine.
Thine. That would actually make more sense if they did call it Thine Planet, because this story is quite loosely inspired and based on, well, it borrows heavily from the
Caveman
novel
politics.
The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, as well as being heavily inspired by the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet. The entire point of this episode, it was meant to more focus on the planet itself, but like the whole thing of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was more meant to be about the planet, but then like from episode 2 or 3 onwards, it's like, actually it's about a person, and it's like, what? No. It's like they try and have it both ways. It's like the first 2 parts are about the planet, and then the second 2 parts are like, actually there's this person, and it's like, it's not, it's really annoying because there's stuff going on. This is an episode that when I forget about it and like I look back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember it. It's like a really cool episode with like the planet and like the weird monster, and it's like, yeah, the pit thing, and it's like, and I forget what happens from the majority of episode 2 onwards because I don't like it. It's very much and it's for the reasons that Deer doesn't like it too, basically. But this episode, so the jungle thing is fucking amazing. Philip Hinchcliffe approached Roger Murray Leach, the designer, the production designer, to ask what sort of landscape he could do best in a studio setting. And Murray Leach sort of remarked that he could always do a good jungle. Despite like just the jungle setting of the serial, he built a massively intricate, detailed jungle set on an entire like sound stage. Like it was so impressive that the BBC like were even impressed by it and like took photographs of it and used it in a BBC training manual of like an example of excellent set design, because of just the way he made it and the way that like not just it looked good, but like it was easy to film things, and he like worked well with like everything going on. But yes, it's a shame that they like everything about this, like even like the cover of the DVD and everything will show the planet and the jungle, and then the majority of this episode is actually spent on a dingy silver looking spaceship, which is not interesting in comparison.
I mean, I'll give him this. The set's great, but like, yeah.
It is. I wish the episode was about the set and about what the episode kind of was meant to be about, which was like a kind of perversion on the Gaia theory, if that makes sense, of like, you know, Earth is Mother Earth, like looking after us, always healing. It's like a perversion and corruption of that is like, you know, what if the planet hates you? What if the planet wants you dead?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. But like that's kind of muddied and not entirely there. But also the sort of creature design effect of like the outline single color design, that came first, and then they decided to write a story around it. Philip Hinchcliffe asked for a weird locale, so he got the jungle. Then they decided on a Jekyll and Hyde planet look, and read hyper popular science books about like antimatter and everything to go off of that. Which, you know, that's why this episode is fucking weirdly disjointed and is just it's not okay. I have a really interesting idea for a story. It was, I have a really interesting effect. Now give us a really interesting setting, and then we'll figure out a story around it. And they didn't figure out a story around it.
Yep.
But what happens in part 2, dear?
Well, the see-through dude actually killed a blue guy, and the other guards come up and go, wait, where did the body go? And run off just before the body just kind of pops back into the area, and I don't really know why they needed to do that, knowing what I know about the rest of the fucking whatever. And And Sarah's like, weird. My brain felt all weird again. I was thinking about that one time in my child. Okay. And then the captain now thinks that the doctor has killed another person. The doctor and Sarah run around before watching the weird thing walk past them again. Blue crew are still trying to find them, decide to prep something that has a giant fucking eye that flies around, and it's an eye robot, and whatever. And Greasy Beans says the dude was murdered the same way his crew was, basically like freeze drying them. And the son is also their son is apparently dying. But forget that we found the prisoners, let's just kill them. And the doctor and Sarah have found a very deep hole thing where the staticky thing just kinda is. And they notice that they're being watched, and they look down and they're like, weird, there's no reflection in this water that might be in here. And then Blue Crew comes up to capture them, and one guy just kind of falls in the hole, and the doctor gets angry. And the doctor is caught, and he's like, why did you kill shit? And he's like, I fucking didn't. And then he counters basically saying, please don't mess with this. Antimatter, bullshit from the start of the universe, stop. And then Greasebean wants to know what they mean, but then instead they're just taken to a prison cell. Sarah offers to just leave, and the doctor's like, no, we really should probably help them. And then also he looks in the weird things, and they have all the antimatter rocks that they collected. And the doctor is like, wow, idiots, you can't just fucking leave with all this shit. And they're like, lol. And then they realize they can't just fucking leave. And a red see-through energy thing attacks them. And of course, the impervious object, they try to shoot it. And they scare it off, thankfully. But the doctor's like, can't take those samples, bro. Sorry. And the doctor heads out, and the iRobot, like, follows along over to the pool. And a big red boy comes up out of the pool, and he's like, hi, hello. And they play rock, paper, scissors, and he loses, and the doctor falls in to the pool. And then, yeah.
Don't we all?
Yes. All the time.
We all fall in the end.
Yes. We all fall down.
A whim away. Fucking hell. God, this episode. There's actually not much really to talk about with this episode, because it is kind of an episode where it wasn't a contemporary real story. It was purely just kind of slapped together. The one thing I will say, though, is that there are extended universe things where they come back here. I believe there's a book where the fifth Doctor comes back to the planet. I haven't read it. To be honest, I never really read most of the 90s books. I read a few, and one of them turned me off them all because it's got really weird sections on it.
Mm-hmm.
But sections of the space door for the geology ship sort of thing were reused props from the Thal ship from Planet of the Daleks. Structural components from the Ark in space and the mutants were used in the ship interior, as well as like some things used on the mutants, like little prop things here and there to fill out the walls. So it's like kind of a cannibalized set in a way. But also this episode was the first to see the fourth Doctor behind the TARDIS console. It's the first time in a long time that the TARDIS console actually showed up. Because the last time the console had been there was the third Doctor's death to the Daleks, which was quite a long time ago now. It makes its debut here, and then the next episode they show it as well, and then they change it again because they didn't do a good job. It doesn't look the best. It looks very slapped together. The one they do after this actually is kind of interesting. I like it a lot. But it's also another temporary one. It's not until a little bit later when they actually get one that they keep for basically the rest of the entire show.
Mm-hmm. I thought they changed with every Doctor.
No. Well, here's the thing. Sometimes they change slightly with the Doctor, but essentially it's been the same one each time, just slightly different. Like the third Doctor's console was like green, and there was a little bit there, and then there also the one time episode where they did roundels that were sort of external instead of internal. Uh, Plus, like, the second Doctor and the first Doctor basically had the same one. Like, the only real reason that they changed it was because the set was falling apart, so they had to build a new one. And then in the 70s, they just couldn't decide on a one because, like, every time they made it, it was like, yeah, this is bad, this is not good, or like, people don't like this, or like, it's bad quality, we can't really put it in storage and bring it out again.
Yeah.
I believe there's one more sort of normal design they do in the 70s, and like they keep it for the rest of the 70s, and then the 80s hit, and the 80s is basically a big refresh for Doctor Who. The showrunner came in 1980 and was like, okay, this is a new era. We are everything that had been done, we're kind of scrapping most of it, and we are new writers, new sort of designs, new production. Like, we're having a stable, like, we get a TARDIS console, design it, and it's gonna stay there. It's gonna last. Like, make something that's good and will last. And it lasts for the entirety of the 80s era. It's great, and it looks great. I like it. It's really angular and like has like lots of buttons and flashes. It's a really good design. But yeah, the 70s, when it comes to the 70s, they kind of didn't really care about the TARDIS itself. Especially one episode where they make the TARDIS looks like just a industrial plant. It's ridiculous. We'll get to it. I really don't like that story that much.
I mean, didn't the 70s literally start with the Doctor not being able to use his TARDIS? So
yes,
it kind of makes sense.
Which is why like they kind of, by the time it got to them using the TARDIS, they were not really sure how to use it or how to make it useful, because remember, most of the third Doctors was set on Earth, so they didn't really have the resources or could justify putting resources into like designing a really good sturdy TARDIS set that would last a long time, because it's like it only got used in like a few episodes, so it wasn't really worth making something like that. Whereas the 70s now, late 70s, mid to late 70s, because we're in 75 or 76, I believe 75 right now, end of 75 at least. Yeah.
Anyway,
from here on out, they tend to not go back to Earth to do like those types of Earthbound stories, and when they do go back to Earth, it's like, okay, it's a historical type, or it's, you know, futuristic. It's kind of rare that they'll go back and do a modern day, or, you know, remember unit dating controversy, quote unquote modern day story. There are a few, don't get me wrong, but they tend to, it's like only maybe one per season now. That's a normal back to Earth modern day. But anyway, what happens in the next part, dear?
So the Blue Man Group want to get rid of the minerals, and Greasebean is like, no, I need them. And Sarah at this point sneaks away and tries to find the Doctor, who is spinning in a void. And then the crew makes a joke about removing the crystals, and Greasebean is doing a plot, and he takes a canister and fucks off with it. Which also, Sarah's at the weird pool and pulls the Doctor out, and he's like, the crystals, they saved me. That I took, and then the ship is ready to take off again. But they see the Doctor on the camera and go to try to save him. And also, Greasebean is starting to have struggles with, like, talking and stuff, and he freaks out, and then all his eyes are, like, neon red for a moment, but then it stops. And the Doctor's back on the ship, and they get him to be alive, so they try to take off again. And apparently the Doctor promised something and is about them taking the antimatter off the ship, but the ship's having trouble, and he's like, whoops, I still have my pop rocks. We have to get it off my ship. And then they do. And then the man carrying the fucking pop rock or whatever gets attacked by the Professor. And then the Doctor mentions there's still antimatter in the ship, and God damn it, the fucking dude that I hate, caveman dude, is like, fuck you, no there's not. And then cut to the Professor turning into more of an animal and having more freakouts, and then time to find the antimatter with the Professor, who totally is not crazy, right? And then let's check the TARDIS, maybe that's probably where it is, right? And the Doctor says, hey Professor, please consider you are wrong, and he says no. And then the ship has come to a complete stop at this point, and they leave Sarah with the Professor, and they have a, like, fight basically. And then the antimatter is apparently pulling the ship back towards the planet. And unless they find it, they're gonna die. Too bad the professor fucking anamorphs in front of Sarah, and she feels that weird feeling again. And then the doctor's asked to open the TARDIS, but Sarah's scream, watching someone die, lets him get free, basically. And they find the doctor at the dead body again. And they're like, alright, let's eject him into space. Oh, by the way, Greasebean is drinking, like, blood? All of their blood, maybe? I'm not really sure. And they almost get ejected, like Sarah and the professor, and then the jackass dude and the older captain dude start to fight over actually murdering them, and they accidentally hit the switch to send them into space while fighting, and that's it.
That's it. It's all over.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone dies. That's just it.
Mm-hmm.
So, this episode, the only other real kind of interesting things are basically costume related. This is one of the only stories in which the Fourth Doctor removes his scarf for any extended period of time. He doesn't wear it for the majority of parts 3 and 4, which you think, oh, is there a reason behind it that isn't production related? Nope,
No.
It's production related. It was a deliberate move to make the filming of the scenes where the Doctor's in the antimatter universe, quote unquote, easier to film, because his scarf would be flying fucking everywhere
Mm-hmm.
if he was in there. So it was like, just take the fucking scarf off. Also, this is the last story of him wearing this outfit. From here on out, he changes outfits to a, in my opinion, better looking outfit. Although he has a few really nice outfits that he gets to.
You didn't
here
like the
and there.
Scottish version?
I do like the Scottish one, but he's only wearing it for like 5 minutes. He doesn't
Yeah.
wear it for any longer than that. It would have been
Yeah.
great if he did. But it's a pretty iconic costume. It's
Mhm.
like on the cover of the DVD and everything.
Yeah.
But yes, I will say, this episode, there's not much like expounded on it, but like I know it's true, and like there's like small little bits here saying that it's true, but not really explaining what that meant. But this episode fucking terrified children. Because it's a story about, invisible monsters and like just an unseeing, all-powerful horror, which Philip Hinchcliffe likes to go back to, that sort of horror in a sense. And the original script had the ending be very different. Originally, the script had Sorensen dying after falling into the pit. But Philip Hinchcliffe ordered that this be changed because he felt it would be too grim for the, quote, little ones. Because he saw Sorensen as a victim of the planet's influence rather than an evil man himself, which I agree with, but also it's like, the story doesn't really expound on that. So instead they actually add a scene where Sorensen is released from the pit and is cured of his antimatter contamination. This story is kind of a mess, and it's exemplified in the character of Salamar, who is the biggest... He exemplifies the worst trope that I always hate in Doctor
Caveman
Who stories. 'Cause it's lazy.
politics. Caveman
Politics in the specific notion of like the Doctor will say something that makes sense, or is like, hey, before you blow up this planet, why don't we actually make sure that like everyone's off the planet, or like make sure that like, the bad guys are actually down there, like, and there's no one on the ship that we're on, like something like that. And the character is like, no, I refuse to listen to you. I'm going to do what I want to do. Fuck you. It's like, come on, man, just fucking.
I mean, that was
characters
what caveman
like
politics was, though. It was very much so like, hey, why don't we discuss this? And he's like, no, fuck you. I'm gonna do things my way, and then arguing for no fucking reason. Yeah,
but I mean, it makes sense with the cavemen because they're cavemen.
I don't
not
give
diplomatic.
a fuck. It's not the point that they're cavemen. That's just what I call it.
That's the thing. yes, the thing is, like, when I say, like, yeah, but they're cavemen, I mean, that's why it's okay in that episode, in the first episode, because they are cavemen. They're not diplomatic, and, like, it's completely fine. They're not really that diplomatic. There are a few that try, but cavemen are not inherently diplomatic. So it's like, okay, fine. But it's using that of, like, okay, it's okay for cavemen, but these people are meant to be humans in the year 30,000 or like 37,000, I think, or something. It's like, you're not meant to be cavemen. Like, you're not meant to be like this. Why are you being like this? Oh, because of lazy writing, because they needed conflict to happen and they couldn't think of anything else. Because again, this wasn't, I have a good idea for a story. It was, let's build a story around this special effect that we have and this really cool set that we have. Like, if they had actually thought of a story first, the problem of Salamar wouldn't be there. Like, he wouldn't be there at all. Because, like, I would say 25% of this episode purely exists because, like, the runtime solely happens because of, like, Salamar not listening to the Doctor and, like, you know, being headstrong and be like, no, the Doctor's the murderer. Let's kill the Doctor. Let's eject him out of the spaceship. And it's like, if you just listen to him, he's very calmly, like even his own crewmates are like, hey, maybe we should, like, get evidence. He says, like, no, the scriptwriter told me to not do that. And it's like, why? And it's like, because we need something to happen. And, like, we need to fill out the episode. And it's like, you could have had a really good story here. You had, like, some really good elements. Like, the special effect is pretty cool. Like, you could have done something with it. They don't. They kind of do in the end and in the beginning, but it's not really that utilized. You have a really cool set of this jungle, but you don't really use it. Like, you use it in that you film on it, but you don't, you know, take advantage of it of, like, oh, why does it look like this? Like, why is it everything's evolved on this planet to kill people, or, like, the planet itself starts, like, you know, absorbing things. Like, you could have used it and have it be part of the messaging. Like, make the planet be a visual metaphor for this Jekyll and Hyde sort of messaging you're wanting to go for with this. But they don't, because they're not really focused on messaging. Because remember, it was really Terrence Dicks that and Barry Letts who were like, a good story is one with a message, because that's how you keep a story in the minds of an audience. You have something entertaining, but also something to keep in their brain of, like, was it right that the character did this? Or, like, maybe, you know, Hole is bad. Like, even basic stuff like that. But Philip Hinchcliffe, he has less of an emphasis on that, and he's more focused on entertainment and kind of scaring people in a fun way. Which it works sometimes when he essentially commissions a script from someone who's like, I have a really good story, and it goes from there. But it also then just doesn't work sometimes when the opposite happens, when it's this sort of case. Which is why I always find this episode a mixed bag for myself, because I think it's incredibly interesting, but a waste of potential. Absolute waste of potential. And Salamar is the embodiment of that to me. The character of Salamar is just represents everything wrong with this writing of the story. But anyway, what happens in the next part, dear?
Last one. So because someone was killed, it shows that it wasn't them. So while everybody's running out, the captain, the good captain, basically reverses it, and they go check. So Sarah gets the Doctor out and mentions that the weird brain thing happened around the professor, and he's like, go to the command deck, and she's like, all right. And then they head back towards the fucking planet because everyone is still bitching at each other. Doctor has found the missing antimatter crystals and knows the professor is up to no good and drinks blood. And he takes out some of the crystals and pours whatever it is on them and makes it brown. Sean Bean is watching, of course, and that one fuck ass is now holding everything hostage for no fucking reason. And the Doctor's like, listen, you're gonna die. Just give up, and the professor runs off with the rest of the antimatter. Hostage guy decides to run off, and the professor goes to sit in the injection seat and kill himself, but he decides to not do it because the animal side wakes him up inside and doesn't let it happen. Doctor wanders off.
Can't wake up.
Doctor wanders in to find the antimatter only. Too bad caveman shitty dude gets killed by Greasebean, and the doctor finds the body. Yeah, thank fucking God. Fuck that guy. Everyone is getting nervous, and the doctor rushes to the control room with the nuclear thingy, and there's a whole bunch of red boys multiplying. There's got to be something to do. And so, because the professor multiplied, everyone is fucked. So the doctor then takes the antimatter and goes to confront him, and they just kind of kill him. I thought it was killing him. I think it was stunning, actually. And shove him into the TARDIS, and the doctor takes off. Too bad the doctor locked up Greasebean in an easily bendable material, while Sarah and the captain sneak around and try to grab some stuff to make a mini force field. And all the static men are here to fuck up Sarah's shit, while the doctor and professor fight it out, and Bean and antimatter get put back into the hole. It apparently saves everyone and stops the ship from being pulled back towards the planet. And the doctor's like, oh, he's flying away from the planet but where's the doctor? And Sarah's like, oh no, and he's flying away from the planet with the original Greasebean. And he's like, where am I? What's happening? TARDIS gets back on Blue Man Group's ship. Sarah's very sad until the doctor shows up. And now it's time for Sarah and the doctor to go back to London. And then they hard cut to the fucking TARDIS flying off. And that's it. Whee! Yup.
That's it. It's Planet of Evil. It's pretty evil. I honestly, I was like, I remember like putting it in, I was like, man, I'm really excited for this one. And then part 1 happened, I was like, yeah, I remember this is really fun. And then part 2, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It's such a shame, because if it was like, if you just somehow were able to cut parts 2 to 4 out and just somehow make part 1 its own self-contained thing, be like, you know what? This is a really pretty good episode, but it's like, personally, I'm just like, the only thing that stops this from being like an absolute 0 or 1 in my mind is the fact that A, the set design is amazing, B, the effect is neat, but it doesn't really save it, and C, Sarah's pretty good in this one in episode 1. And then part 2 to 4, she turns into a crying mess. But also, you know, her outfit's pretty neat. It's like, other than that, it's like this episode is kind of irredeemable. Yep. Like, you have a cool concept and you fuck it up. Yep. You just intentionally fuck it up too. Not like they 100%. Were trying. It's like, why didn't you even try?
Yep. For all of the reasons and more above a 2.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I wholeheartly agree with that one. Like, normally when you rate something low, I'm like, I think it's a little bit higher. Like, I'm more forgiving with some of the things that you might take issue with, like, oh, there's too much happening, or even sometimes there's not enough happening, even though most of the time I will agree with you, like, yeah, there's nothing happening here. Mm-hmm. But this one, I'm 100% like, yeah, no, this is it's kind of, mainly, it's frustrating in, like, I can see, like, in my head, a really good episode based on this. And the fact that they not only didn't do that, but they didn't even try is like, fuck you.
Yeah.
But the next episode is a lot more fun. A lot more fun, and I do remember it actually being fun. Okay. Lots of really cool visuals, a really fun villain. All
right, hold on.
Some things here.
Give me the words. Give me the words. What's up?
Okay.
Give me the words.
Would you like to guess the noun or the proper noun?
Noun.
Because it's noun of proper noun. So I'm gonna toss up. Which one do you want to guess?
Noun.
You want to guess the noun? Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's blank of Mars.
Okay. Blank of Mars.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think you're gonna guess it, but if you do, that would be amazing.
Whales.
Out there, but no.
Damn.
I'll give you 2 more guesses, and I can give you a hint if you want.
Sure.
Okay, it is not a living thing. But it is it's a noun, so it is a thing, but it's not living.
Is it more than one thing?
It is plural, but that doesn't really help you, except the fact that it has an S on the end.
Oceans.
I wouldn't think about the plural. What'd you say, sorry?
Oceans.
Oceans of Mars. No, but that is close to an episode in the new series called Waters of Mars.
Uh-huh.
No, okay, final clue, it's a structure.
Temples.
Super close! Pyramids of Mars.
Okay, well. Listen, this is the second time we've done this. I'll get better at it. I'll get good one day. We'll figure it out.
You nearly got it in that final one. I think you'll definitely get the one after.
It's fucking Mars. What are you gonna talk about? There's like the face mountain thing, there's water/ice, and there's aliens.
Let me tell you, this one... The Mars isn't the most significant thing in it. Mars is kind of incidental to it. And don't worry, I know you don't think it because you've probably forgotten because you blocked it out of your mind. But don't worry, just because it's Mars does not mean there's ice warriors. There's no ice warriors in this one.
Yay.
Because remember, the ice warriors are from Mars.
Yes.
But don't worry, there's no ice warriors in this one. It's remember how I said Doctor Who gets into a lot of kind of mythology and also kind of goes into a little bit of cosmic horror in a way?
Yeah.
We dip our toes into both. More so the mythology. How up to date are you on your Egyptology, dear?
Not a lot. I used to be. Why?
I think if you used to be, that's more than enough, because it's not like you need a lot here. Like, it's just some small things. But also, so next episode, Pyramids of Mars. What does that mean? I don't know, but Sarah gets her gun license.
Woo!
See you next episode.